Now, would I go through this kind of work for a handle if I was doing it all by hand? Well, personally, I wouldn't. You could. It's certainly doable all by hand at the anvil. But this is just the sort of thing that the power hammer gives me the freedom to do this fairly quickly and fairly efficiently. But if it's just a matter of getting a tool done to do the job, you can make a heading tool without ever lighting the forge. I'm going to go ahead and put my touch mark on the handle, and while I'm at it, I'm going to stamp it 4140, so if I ever need to reharden and temper this tool, I'll know what I'm working with. Now the handle portion should be done at this point. Probably have to go back and straighten it some later. It seems like you always end up bending something in the rest of the process. But this now gives us something really solid to hold on to, turn it around, and finish the working end of the tool. Now the next thing I want to do to this tool is taper it in the width so that it's a little bit longer. The smaller holes in the tool will go at the end, and the bigger holes will go up towards the handle. And it's just a more graceful tool that way, and we can get better use out of the material I have. There's no reason to have an 1.5 inch wide bar if I'm only going to put a 1/4 inch hole at that end. It might as well be a lot smaller. And once again, that's a job that I think is best done under the power hammer, at least for me. While it's okay if I make this thinner in the thickness, I don't want it to taper in the thickness. I want it to set flat on the anvil and have the holes perpendicular when I'm using it. So if I make it any thinner while I'm forging it, I need to thin it out evenly throughout the entire length of the working end. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now the decision comes down to how you're going to put the holes in this thing. It sort of depends on what you're going to use it for and what shape holes you need. A heading tool or a bolster plate, depending on what you want to call it and how you're going to use it, can have any shape hole you want. If it's going to be round holes used primarily as a heading tool for bolts, rivets, things like that, probably it's better to drill it so you get exactly the diameter hole you want, and they're going to be perfectly straight up and down or parallel-sided holes. And personally, for doing bolts and rivets, that's what I prefer. It keeps the shank from shifting. If you've got a flared hole, which is kind of popular, a lot of people advocate flared holes in tools like this, the actual bolt part can shift under the head and push up against that, and then you got a crooked bolt or crooked rivet, and that just creates one more problem you got to fix. So personally, I prefer parallel holes if that's the primary use for the tool. Another use for a tool like this is punching through it. You just need a place to clear a slug out through. And in that case, I really think you do want those flared out holes because then there's no resistance. It gives a little bit crisper edge to punch against. So you get a cleaner punch, and then the slug falls through and falls out. You don't have to drive it out later in most cases anyways. But it just so happens that I have made 2 of these things today. So I think one of them we're going to go ahead and punch. We're going to put some square holes and some slotted holes in it. The other one we're going to drill and make nice, clean, parallel holes in it. For the drilled one, I want it as soft as possible, so that means I'm going to slow cool it in the vermiculite and give it as close to a perfect annealing as I possibly can. This one I'm going to punch with some different shapes, so it'll be more of a bolster plate for punching. But to do that cleanly, we kind of need bolsters. So I have an assortment of little things that I've made over the years as one-off bolsters, and we'll use these as needed to make punching this a little bit cleaner. Now typically when you punch a hole, you punch most of the way through from one side, flip it over, clear the slug out from the other side. But that means you're ending up with kind of an hourglass shaped hole, and that isn't what we want here. We want a tapered hole. The bottom is larger than the top. So we want to punch all the way through from the back side, and that's why a bolster of some sort to support the material while you drive the punch through is really important. Punching over the Pritchell hole or the Hardy hole won't be real practical because it's way bigger and you're going to push a lot of material down into there besides what you're trying to punch out. But the first thing I need to do is figure out how many different holes I can put in this. I want to have a reasonable amount of space between each hole, so we need to do a little layout work. Cool your punch frequently. Now getting everything to line up with the hole in the bolster is the tough part. That just takes a lot of practice and maybe a little trial and error. But it's one of the reasons I don't like to harden my bolsters, because the odds of missing are quite high and there's no reason to drive a hardened punch into a hard bolster and chip something. Well, it's getting close. I haven't quite cleared the slug. One more heat should do it. Need to be a little grinding to clean up the rag because the bolster plate isn't a perfect fit. Make sure you punch all these from the same side. So this is now the back side. All of these get punched from this side. Now I'm not going to make you watch me punch all 6 of these holes. I'm going to do 2 rounds, 2 squares, and 2 slotted holes. So I'll meet you right back here just before we finish that last slotted hole. One simple form of a bolster for punching slotted holes is just a piece of square bar bent into a U shape. But another option is your vise, which is adjustable and can fit just about anything. So there's our holes rough punched. We need to do a little straightening, maybe a little filing to clean these up. But that's just up to how much work you want to put into your tool. If you don't mind it a little crooked or the hole's a little off center, that's okay. It's still going to work, still going to do its job. But I want to clean this up a little bit, and I think I'm going to take some of the fat spots out on the grinder. So that's my next step, is to head to the grinder. And while we're talking about grinders, don't forget, Black Bear Forge is sponsored by Combat Abrasives. There's a link in the video description, and the coupon code BlackBear10 gets you a discount on your next order. Now the second piece, I just drilled the holes in and then just lightly deburred them so there are no sharp edges at the edge of all those holes. Those could provide stress points or nicks in your work when you're working with this. So it's a better idea to go ahead and just lightly chamfer those holes. Now this one has just a little bit of misalignment in the handle, so I'm going to heat it up and then we're going to go ahead and straighten it. And at that point, I'm going to harden and temper this one. And while it's heating in the hardening oven, we can address our attention to the one that we punched, which is considerably more bent up and misshapen, and I'd like to straighten it out. I will let this cool down to black heat before putting it in the heat treat oven, just to guarantee that it heats up evenly. As I straighten this, I'm trying to hammer between the holes so I don't deform them too much. But in any case, I'll probably put all of these punches through one more time just to make sure the holes are cleaned up in the right shape. Now there's certainly some point of diminishing returns here between straightening it, refining the holes, then having to go back and straighten it again because it bowed a little bit while you were refining the holes. You can do some of this with a die grinder, go back in, file a little bit more if you need to. But remember, this is just kind of a support plate for punching holes, at least for the most part, that's what I'm going to use it for. So it doesn't have to be machinist tolerances. Okay, if the holes are a little off, as long as the punch can go through cleanly and clear the slug out. And because this one is a punch bolster and not a heading plate, I'm not going to harden and temper this. I'm just going to let it air cool. That's all I think it needs. I would rather ding this and have to come back and make minor repairs on it than to chip the end of a punch hitting a hardened plate. Now I'm only quenching the working end on this. I don't need to quench the handle. Then I'm going to go ahead and put this in the toaster oven at the usual 450 because that's the hottest that'll go. But this does not need to be all that hard. So once the big oven cools back down, I'll bring it back up to 600 degrees and I'll temper this at 600. So it's a good tough tool, but not a particularly hard tool. So here we have two very similar tools. One has drilled holes that are very precise. It's been hardened to stand up to a lot of hammering as you form rivet heads, bolt heads, and other similar things. The other one has been punched with a series of different sizes and different shape holes. This is primarily going to be used as a bolster plate for additional punching. So you've got something to support your material while you drive the punch all the way through, and it helps shear off a slug that way. And this one has not been hardened, but the 4140 is good and tough. So I'm probably never going to notice much difference between the two tools. This also means it's time to try them out. Now remember, these are just the tools that I wanted to make for my shop. You can take any number of approaches, different materials, different construction techniques to suit your skills, your tooling, and your ability in your shop. In the meantime, I do hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.